When famous billionaire Elon Musk visits his nephew Zach's middle school for career day, the school bully dares him to perform in the upcoming talent show as a joke. To everyone's shock, Elon accepts the challenge. Zach is horrified. His famous uncle is about to embarrass himself and ruin Zach's already shaky social life. What Zach doesn't know is that his uncle has kept a special talent hidden from the world for decades. As the big night approaches, news reporters gather and the show is moved to a larger venue. The pressure builds. Zach discovers his uncle's secret. Ability, but wonders. Can Elon really impress an auditorium full of students, parents, and news cameras with this long-buried skill? And what mysterious promise from Elon's past is about to change lives around the world? And now, for our final guest speaker on Career Day, please welcome Mr. Elon Musk. Principal Donovan's voice boomed through the microphone as she gestured toward the side of the stage. The middle school auditorium erupted with excited whispers and the rapid tapping of fingers on phone screens as the famous billionaire stepped into view. 12-year-old Zach Parker sank lower in his seat, pulling his hoodie tighter around his face. While the other kids buzzed with excitement, Zach wished he could disappear. Having a super-famous uncle was supposed to be cool, but today, it just made him the center of unwanted attention. "Dude, your uncle is actually here," Mason whispered, poking Zach in the ribs. "Why didn't you tell us he was coming?" "I didn't know," Zach muttered. It was true. His mom had mentioned Uncle Elon might stop by for dinner sometime this week while he was in town checking on his new factory, but showing up at Career Day? That was a surprise. Uncle Elon walked across the stage in his typical outfit, dark jeans and a simple black t-shirt, looking more like a regular guy than someone who built rocket ships and electric cars. He shook Principal Donovan's hand and took the microphone. "Thanks for having me," he said with a slight smile. "I heard my nephew goes to school here, and I thought it might be fun to stop by." Hundreds of heads swiveled toward Zach. He could feel his face burning hotter than one of his uncle's rocket engines. For the next 20 minutes, Uncle Elon talked about his companies and answered questions about space travel, electric cars, and what it was like to be one of the richest people on Earth. Most of the questions were pretty normal, but then Principal Donovan pointed to the raised hand of Theo Winters. Zach's stomach dropped. Theo was the 8th grade class president, star of the basketball team, and the biggest show-off in school. He also loved finding new ways to make Zach's life miserable. "Yes, you in the blue shirt," Uncle Elon said, pointing to Theo. Theo stood up with a confident smile. "Mr. Musk, everyone knows you're smart with technology and business, but I'm wondering, is there anything you're actually bad at?" A few snickers rippled through the audience. Principal Donovan frowned and reached for the microphone, but Uncle Elon waved her off. "That's a good question," he said thoughtfully. "I'm terrible at plenty of things. I can't draw very well. I'm not great at remembering people's names. And despite growing up in South Africa, I never got good at cricket." The students laughed, but Theo wasn't finished. "So basically you're saying you're not good at normal people stuff?" Theo pressed. "Like, I bet you wouldn't last 5 minutes in our school talent show next week." The auditorium went silent. Principal Donovan stepped forward, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Theo, that's enough. Mr. Musk is our guest and—" "No, it's fine," Uncle Elon interrupted, a strange glint in his eye. "Tell me about this talent show." Principal Donovan cleared her throat. "It's our annual spring talent showcase. Students perform and the winner gets a small scholarship fund for future education. And you think I wouldn't last 5 minutes?" Uncle Elon asked, looking directly at Theo. Zach wanted to disappear through the floor. Was his uncle actually getting into an argument with an 8th grader? Theo grinned widely. "No offense, sir, but tech billionaires aren't exactly known for their stage presence. Unless you're hiding some amazing talent, it might be kind of embarrassing. Several teachers gasped. A few students turned to look at Zach again, their expressions a mix of horror and fascination. Uncle Elon was quiet for a moment. Then, to everyone's shock, he smiled. Not his usual slight smile for the cameras, but a full, genuine grin that Zach had only seen when his uncle was truly up to something. "You know what? You're right that stepping outside our comfort zones is hard," Uncle Elon said. "So, challenge accepted. I'll perform in your talent show." The auditorium exploded with noise. Students jumped to their feet, phones raised high to capture the moment. Principal Donovan looked like she might faint. And Zach felt like the world was ending. As the chaos continued, Uncle Elon made his way off the stage and down the aisle toward the exit. He paused when he reached Zach's row and leaned down. "Surprise," he said with a wink. "Looks like I'll be sticking around for a few more days. Dinner at your place tonight?" Zach could only nod, too stunned to speak. As his uncle left, Theo called, out from across the auditorium. "Better start practicing, Mr. Musk. Talent show's on Friday." The final bell rang 10 minutes later, but instead of rushing to the buses like normal, everyone swarmed around Zach. "Is your uncle really going to do it? What's his talent going to be? Can you get me his autograph?" Zach pushed through the crowd, desperate to escape. He had almost made it to the door when he felt a hand clamp down on his shoulder. He turned to find Theo standing there, surrounded by his usual group of friends. "Your uncle is pretty cool for accepting my challenge," Theo said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "But you might want to warn him. My dad's bringing a reporter friend from the local news. Would be a shame if the famous Elon Musk made a fool of himself on camera, wouldn't it?" Zach pulled away. "He's not going to make a fool of himself." "Really?" Theo raised an eyebrow. "What's his talent then? Building tiny rockets? Doing robot dances? Or maybe he'll just stand on stage and count his money?" Theo's friends laughed. Zach felt his hands clench into fists. "You don't know anything about my uncle," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "And apparently, neither do you," Theo shot back. "Otherwise, you wouldn't look so scared right now." Before Zach could respond, Mason appeared at his side. "Bus is leaving in 1 minute, Zach. We gotta go." Grateful for the rescue, Zach hurried out of the building with Mason. They barely made it onto the bus before the doors closed. "Your uncle is the coolest person ever," Mason said, as they found seats near the back. "I can't believe he's going to be in the talent show. What do you think he'll do?" "I have no idea," Zach admitted, and that was exactly what worried him. When the bus dropped him off at home, Zach was surprised to see his uncle's sleek electric car already parked in the driveway. He trudged up the front steps, dreading the conversation to come. Inside, he found his mom and Uncle Elon sitting at the kitchen table deep in conversation. They both looked up when he entered. "There he is," Uncle Elon said cheerfully. "The reason I'm about to make my middle school talent show debut," Zach's mom laughed. "I still can't believe you agreed to this, Elon. You know these kids can be brutal. Judges." "That's what makes it fun," Uncle Elon replied, taking a sip from his coffee mug. "The higher the stakes, the more interesting the challenge." "It's not fun," Zach blurted out, dropping his backpack on the floor. "It's going to be a disaster." His mom and uncle exchanged glances. "Zach, honey, what's wrong?" his mom asked. "I thought you'd be excited." "Excited about what? Watching Uncle Elon get laughed at by the whole school?" "Theo set this whole thing up as a joke, Mom. He wants Uncle Elon to fail so everyone can laugh at him, and at me." Uncle Elon leaned forward, his expression suddenly serious. "Is that what you're worried about? That I'll embarrass you? Zach looked down at his shoes, unable to meet his uncle's eyes. You don't understand. Theo already makes school hard enough for me. And now he's bringing a news reporter to watch whatever happens. A reporter? His mom frowned. Elon, maybe this isn't such a good idea after all. Uncle Elon was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up and walked over to Zach, placing a hand on his shoulder. Zach, look at me, he said gently. Reluctantly, Zach raised his eyes. You know what's the biggest mistake people make? Uncle Elon asked. They assume they know what others are capable of. They put people in boxes and never expect them to surprise them. A small, mysterious smile played on his lips. This Theo kid thinks he knows what I can and can't do. He's in for a surprise. But what are you going to do? Zach asked. The talent show is in 3 days. Uncle Elon's smile widened. That's for me to know and you to find out. But I promise you this. Whatever happens on that stage, you won't be embarrassed. Trust me. Zach wanted to believe him. But as he watched his uncle return to the table, chatting easily with his mom about the new factory, the knot in his stomach only grew tighter. Because the truth was, Zach had no idea what talents his famous uncle might be hiding, or if he had any stage-worthy skills at all. All he knew was that in 3 days, either Theo Winters would be proven right, or Uncle Elon would pull off the surprise of a lifetime. And Zach wasn't sure which possibility scared him more. That night, Zach couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, his mind replaying Theo's smug face and his uncle's mysterious confidence. Around midnight, he crept downstairs for a glass of water and found the guest room lights still on, a thin line of brightness visible under the door. Zach hesitated, then knocked softly. Come in, Uncle Elon called. Zach pushed the door open to find his uncle sitting cross-legged on the bed, surrounded by papers covered with scribbles and notes. A laptop glowed softly beside him. Can't sleep? Uncle Elon asked, gathering up some of the papers. No, Zach admitted. I keep thinking about the talent show. Uncle Elon patted the edge of the bed. Sit, let's talk. Zach perched nervously on the corner of the mattress. I think you should back out, he blurted. Tell them you have an emergency at one of your companies or something. Uncle Elon raised an eyebrow. You want me to lie? Not lie exactly. Just... Zach struggled to find the right words. You don't understand what Theo is like. He set this whole thing up to make you look bad. So what if he did? Uncle Elon asked calmly. So what? Zach stared at his uncle. Don't you care if people laugh at you? Uncle Elon folded his hands in his lap. Zach, do you know how many people laughed at the idea of reusable rockets? Or electric cars that could outperform gas-powered ones? Or tunnels under cities to solve traffic problems? Zach shrugged. Probably a lot. More than a lot. Experts, investors, other companies, they all said my ideas were impossible or stupid. Uncle Elon's voice was quiet, but intense. If I'd worried about looking foolish, none of those things would exist today. But that's different, Zach protested. Those are things you're good at. This is a talent show. Uncle Elon reached for his wallet on the nightstand and pulled something out. An old worn photograph. He looked at it for a moment, his expression softening, then tucked it away before Zach could see what it was. There was a time when I wasn't good at those things either, he said. We all start somewhere, usually being not very good at the things we later master. Zach picked at a loose thread on the bedspread. But you only have 3 days. A smile tugged at the corner of Uncle Elon's mouth. Maybe that's all I need. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Uncle Elon leaned forward. Let me tell you a story I don't share often, He said, "When I was a bit younger than you, growing up in South Africa, I became interested in something that the other boys thought was uncool. They teased me relentlessly about it." "What was it?" Zach asked. Uncle Elon shook his head. "That's not important right now. What matters is what my mother told me when I came home crying one day. She said, 'Elon, fear of looking foolish is just fear of other people's opinions, and other people's opinions are the heaviest weights you can choose to carry.'" He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the dark neighborhood. "I nearly gave up on that interest because I was afraid of being mocked. But I kept at it, and later, those same skills became surprisingly valuable to me." Turning back to Zach, he continued, "I'm not backing out of the talent show, not because I need to prove anything to this Theo kid, but because this is a chance to show you something important about life." "What's that?" Zach asked. "That courage isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing it anyway." Uncle Elon sat back down on the bed. "So, yes, I'm doing the talent show, and I'd like your help." Zach blinked in surprise. "My help? With what?" "I need to practice, and I could use an honest audience." Uncle Elon's eyes twinkled. "Plus, you know the school better than I do. You can tell me what works and what doesn't." A mix of emotions swirled. In Zach's chest, worry, curiosity, and a small growing spark of excitement. "You're really going to do this, aren't you?" "I really am." Uncle Elon looked at Zach seriously. "The question is, are you with me or against me?" Zach hesitated. The sensible part of him still screamed that this was a terrible idea. But another part, a part that had always secretly admired his uncle's boldness, whispered that maybe, just maybe, Uncle Elon really did have something up his sleeve. "Fine," Zach said finally. "I'll help you. But don't blame me when Theo and his friends start posting videos of whatever happens all over the internet." Uncle Elon laughed. "Deal!" He reached over to his laptop and closed it. "Now, go get some sleep. We start tomorrow after school." The next morning at breakfast, Zach's mom eyed them both suspiciously as Uncle Elon drank a strange-smelling tea with honey. "What exactly are you planning for this talent show?" she asked. Uncle Elon and Zach exchanged glances. "It's a surprise," they said in unison. At school, the news of Elon Musk's talent show appearance had spread like wildfire. Teachers Zach had never even spoken to stopped him in the hallway to ask if it was true. By lunchtime, a rumor was circulating that famous celebrities might show up to watch. "Did you know the principal is selling extra tickets?" Mason said, sliding his lunch tray next to Zach's. "The show's been moved to the big auditorium at the high school because so many people want to come." Zach nearly choked on his milk. "The high school? That place seats like 1,000 people." "I know. It's going to be epic." Mason looked at Zach with wide eyes. "So come on, you can tell me. What's your uncle going to do?" "I don't know." Zach lied, poking at his cafeteria pizza. "You're a terrible liar, Parker," came Theo's voice from behind them. He sat down across from Zach, uninvited. "But it doesn't matter. Whatever your uncle's planning, it won't be good enough." "Why do you even care?" Zach asked, finding a sudden surge of courage. "What did my uncle ever do to you?" Theo leaned forward. "People like your uncle think they can do anything just because they're rich and famous. I'm just making sure he knows he can't." With that, Theo stood and walked away, leaving Zach staring after him. That afternoon, as promised, Uncle Elon was waiting when Zach got home from school. The guest room door was closed, and a small handwritten sign had been taped to it. "Rehearsal in progress. Enter at your own risk." Zach took a deep breath and knocked. It was time to find out exactly what his uncle was planning. "Come in," called Uncle Elon's voice. "And get ready to be surprised." Zach pushed open the door and stepped into the guest room. He wasn't sure what he expected to find, maybe a guitar, or a magic set, or even a tiny rocket. But the room looked surprisingly normal. Uncle Elon stood in the center, holding a tablet and a glass of water. "Close the door," Uncle Elon said, glancing at his watch. "We don't have much time." Zach shut the door behind him. "Time for what?" "What are you going to do for the talent show?" Uncle Elon set his tablet down on the dresser. "First, I need you to promise me something. What happens in this room stays between us until the show. No telling your friends, your mom, or anyone else. Deal?" "Deal," Zach agreed, curiosity now fully taking over his anxiety. "Good." Uncle Elon took a sip of water. "Now, I understand the talent show normally has students doing things like playing instruments, dancing, or magic tricks. Is that right?" Zach nodded. "Yeah, mostly. Last year, someone did a science experiment that made the gym smell like rotten eggs for a week." Uncle Elon chuckled. "Well, I'm not doing that." He pulled the desk chair toward the middle of the room. "Sit. I want your honest opinion." Zach sat down, his leg bouncing nervously. "Opinion about what?" Instead of answering, Uncle Elon tapped his tablet. Soft music began playing, something Zach didn't recognize, with strings and a gentle, steady rhythm. Uncle Elon closed his eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and then nothing could have prepared Zach for what happened next. His uncle, the famous tech billionaire who built rockets and electric cars, opened his mouth and began to sing. The Pooh. Words weren't in English. They sounded rich and flowing, with clicks and tones Zach had never heard before. But even more surprising than the foreign language was the voice itself. Uncle Elon's singing voice was good, really good, deep and warm, with a slight roughness that somehow made it more real, more emotional. It filled the small guest room completely. When the verse ended, Uncle Elon stopped singing, and the music continued softly in the background. He looked at Zach expectantly. "Well?" he asked. Zach realized his mouth was hanging open. He closed it quickly. "That was... You can sing?" "So it seems," Uncle Elon said with a small smile. "The question is it good enough for your talent show?" "Good enough?" Zach stood up, gesturing wildly. "Uncle Elon, that was amazing. Where did you learn to sing like that? What language was that? Why haven't you ever told anyone you can sing?" Uncle Elon held up a hand to slow Zach's flood of questions. "One at a time. Yes, I can sing, and I used to do it a lot when I was younger. The song is in Xhosa, one of the languages spoken in South Africa where I grew up. And I haven't told anyone because..." He paused, searching for the right words. "Because some things you keep just for yourself." Zach couldn't believe it. His uncle, the man constantly in the spotlight, whose every tweet made headlines, had a hidden talent that nobody knew about. "But why show it now?" Zach asked. "You could have just done something simple for the talent show. A science demonstration, or something." Uncle Elon walked to the window and looked out, his back to Zach. "Because sometimes, Zach, the thing we're most afraid to share is the thing we most need to give." He turned back, his eyes more serious than Zach had ever seen them. "I've spent my whole adult life being the tech guy, the business guy, the Mars guy. And that's fine. I love those things. But there was a time when music was just as important to me." He tapped his pocket, where Zach suspected the mysterious photograph was kept. I've been hiding this part of myself for too long." A burst of pride welled up in Zach's chest. His uncle wasn't just doing this to teach him a lesson or to impress a bunch of middle schoolers. He was doing something brave, something real. "So the talent show?" Zach began. "Is the perfect opportunity," Uncle Elon finished. "Low stakes, relatively speaking. Not a global broadcast or a shareholder meeting. Just a school auditorium full of kids and parents." "And a local news reporter," Zach reminded him. Uncle Elon waved dismissively. One small step for a billionaire, one giant leap for his image. They both laughed, and the tension that had been building since career day finally began to dissolve. "All right," Zach said, feeling excited for the first time. "What can I do to help?" For the next hour, Uncle Elon practiced the song while Zach watched, offering suggestions about where to stand and how to move. Uncle Elon explained that he would sing 2 songs, the first in Josa, a traditional folk song his nanny had taught him as a child, and the second in English, which he wouldn't reveal yet. "But how will people understand the first song if it's not in English?" Zach asked. "Music doesn't always need words to be understood," Uncle Elon replied. "Sometimes the feeling is enough." As they wrapped up the practice session, Zach felt a new worry forming. "Uncle Elon, what if people don't get it? What if they're expecting you to do something with technology, and instead you sing a song in a language they don't know?" Uncle Elon squeezed Zach's shoulder. "Then they'll learn something new about expectations, won't they? Just like you did today." The next morning at school, Zach found himself walking with a lighter step. He still couldn't believe his uncle's hidden talent. But now at least he wasn't dreading the talent show with the same gut-twisting fear. That is, until he rounded the corner to his locker and found Theo waiting for him. "Parker," Theo said, leaning against the metal lockers. "Got some inside info about your uncle's act yet?" "Nope," Zach lied, opening his locker and shoving his backpack inside. "Weird," Theo said, examining his fingernails casually. "Because my dad's friend at the local news says there's a rumor going around that your uncle is planning to sing." He looked up sharply. "Elon Musk, singing. Can you imagine anything more ridiculous?" Zach's heart hammered in his chest. How had they found out? He forced himself to shrug. "Sounds pretty cool to me." "Cool?" Theo laughed. "It sounds desperate. Like he couldn't think of anything else, so he's just going to embarrass himself by screeching on stage." He pushed off, from the lockers. "They're setting up the sound system at the high school auditorium today. Hope your uncle's ready for his voice to echo all the way across town when he fails." As Theo walked away, a quiet voice spoke from behind Zach. "Don't listen to him." Zach turned to find a girl he didn't recognize standing there. She was small, with long, dark hair and serious eyes behind round glasses. "Excuse me?" Zach said. "I said, don't listen to him," the girl repeated. "That boy doesn't know what he's talking about." "And you do?" Zach asked, more defensively than he intended. The girl smiled slightly. "I know that people who try to make others feel small are usually small themselves." She held out her hand. "I'm Mei Lee. I just transferred here 2 weeks ago." "Zach," he replied, shaking her hand awkwardly. "Zach Parker." "I know," Mei Lee said. "Everyone knows who you are now, thanks to your uncle." She glanced down the hall where Theo had disappeared. "Is it true? Is your uncle really going to sing at the talent show?" Zach hesitated. He'd promised Uncle Elon he wouldn't tell anyone, but something about Mei Lee's direct gaze made him want to trust her. "I can't say," he answered carefully. Mei Lee nodded, seeming to understand. "My mother is a music teacher," she said. She always says that music is the one true language everyone can understand, even if they don't speak the same words. Before Zach could respond, the bell rang, signaling the start of first period. "I have to get to class," Mei Li said, adjusting her backpack. "But tell your uncle I'll be cheering for him no matter what he does." As she walked away, Zach stood there, strangely comforted by the words of this girl he'd just met. That afternoon, when Zach approached the guest room for another practice session, he paused outside the door. From within came the sound of his uncle's voice, strong and clear, singing a melody that made Zach's chest tighten with an emotion he couldn't name. For a moment, he just stood there, listening through the door, wondering how he ever could have doubted his uncle. Then he knocked and entered, ready for another secret practice, unaware that in just 2 more days, the whole world would discover what he now knew. "Come in," Uncle Elon called. Zach entered the guest room to find his uncle frowning at his tablet, swiping through what looked like music files. "Everything okay?" Zach asked. Uncle Elon glanced up. "The backing track for the second song isn't right. The tempo is too fast, and it drowns out some of the lyrics." Zach set his backpack down. "Can't you just sing without music?" "For the first song, yes, but the second one needs accompaniment." Uncle Elon ran a hand through his hair, a rare sign of frustration. "I could try to adjust it myself, but sound engineering isn't exactly my specialty." Zach thought for a moment. "Maybe I know someone who could help." Uncle Elon raised an eyebrow. "Who?" "There's this new girl at school, Mei Li. I met her today. She mentioned her mom is a music teacher." Uncle Elon looked skeptical. "And you think this girl could help with the music track?" "I don't know," Zach admitted. "But she seemed to know a lot about music. And she was nice, not like Theo and his friends." Uncle Elon considered this. "We're running out of time. All right, talk to her tomorrow. But remember, this stays secret until the show." The next morning, Zach searched the hallways for Mei Li. He finally spotted her in the library during study hall, sitting alone at a table with headphones on, writing in a notebook. "Hey," Zach said, sliding into the chair across from her. Mei Li looked up, surprised. She removed her headphones. "Hello, Zach Parker. About what you said yesterday, about your mom being a music teacher." Zach lowered his voice. "Do you know a lot about music too?" Mei Li tilted her head slightly. "I play piano and violin, and I help my mother arrange music for her students sometimes." "Why?" Zach leaned closer. "If I tell you something, will you promise to keep it a secret?" Mei Li's eyes widened with interest, but she nodded solemnly. "My uncle really is going to sing at the talent show," Zach whispered. "And he's actually really good. But he needs help. With a music track for one of his songs." "Your uncle, Elon Musk, can sing?" Mei Li asked, her voice hushed but excited. "Yes, and it's amazing," Zach said earnestly. "He learned in South Africa when he was a kid, but nobody knows about it. And now he's going to show everyone at the talent show, but he's having trouble with one of his backing tracks." Mei Li's eyes lit up. "I could help with that. My mother taught me how to use music editing software." Her excitement dimmed slightly. "But why would your uncle trust me? He doesn't even know me." Zach hadn't thought that far ahead. "Could you come to my house after school? You could meet him and maybe show him what you can do?" Mei Li hesitated. "I would need to ask my mother." "First, of course," Zach said quickly. "But please don't tell her why. It's supposed to be a surprise." Mei Li smiled. "I can keep a secret." That afternoon, Zach paced nervously at the bus stop, waiting to see if Mei Li would show up. Just when he thought she wasn't coming, he spotted her walking toward him, carrying a laptop bag along with her backpack. "My mother said it was okay," she explained. "I told her I was helping a friend with a project." On the bus ride to Zach's house, they chatted about school and discovered they shared a love of science fiction books. Mei Li had moved from Seattle after her parents' divorce and was still adjusting to her new school. "It's hard being the new kid," she admitted. "No one talks to me except the teachers." "I'm talking to you," Zach pointed out. Mei Li laughed. "Yes, but only because you need my help." "That's not true," Zach protested, then realized she was teasing him. He grinned. "Okay, maybe at first, but you seem cool." When they arrived at Zach's house, his palms were sweating. What if Uncle Elon didn't like Mei Li's ideas? What if she thought his singing wasn't as good as Zach believed it was? "Mom, I'm home," Zach called as they entered. "I brought a friend from school." Zach's mom appeared from the kitchen, looking pleasantly surprised. "Hello there, I'm Laura Parker." "This is Mei Li," Zach said. "She just moved here. Is Uncle Elon home?" "In the guest room, as usual," his mom replied. "He's barely left it since yesterday." "What exactly is he working on in there?" "School project," Zach said quickly. "Come on, Mei Li." He led her to the guest room door and knocked. "Who is it?" Uncle Elon called. "It's me," Zach answered, "and I brought someone who might be able to help with the music problem." A moment of silence followed. Then the door opened. Uncle Elon stood there, looking between Zach and Mei Li with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Uncle Elon, this is Mei Li," Zach said. "Her mom is a music teacher, and she knows about editing audio tracks." Mei Li, who had seemed so confident at school, now looked slightly intimidated. She clutched her laptop bag tighter and gave a small bow of her head. "It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Musk," she said quietly. "Zach told me you need help with a backing track." Uncle Elon studied her for a moment, then stepped back to let them in. "Call me Elon. And yes, I could use some help, but this has to stay absolutely confidential." "I understand," Mei Li said, her voice growing more confident. "I won't tell anyone." Inside the room, Uncle Elon explained the problem with the second song's backing track while Mei Li listened intently. She asked a few technical questions that Zach didn't understand, then took out her laptop. "May I hear the original track?" "And then hear you sing with it?" she asked. Uncle Elon nodded. He played the music, a simple piano melody that built into something more complex, and then sang along. His voice sounded different with this song, more vulnerable somehow. The words were in English this time, about reaching for stars and never giving up, even when the path seemed impossible. When he finished, Mei Li was sitting very still, her eyes wide. "That was beautiful," she whispered. Uncle Elon shrugged, looking almost embarrassed. "The backing track drowns out the bridge, and the tempo is too fast for some of the verses." Mei Li nodded, all business now. "I can fix that. It will take me about an hour." She opened her laptop and began setting up her software. "The song itself, did you write it?" "A long time ago," Uncle Elon admitted. "It was never meant for anyone else to hear." "Well, it deserves to be heard," Mei Li said firmly. "And with the right accompaniment, it will be perfect." As Mei Li worked on the track, Uncle Elon continued practicing the first song with Zach. Occasionally, Mei Li would look up and offer a suggestion about his breathing or posture, which Uncle Elon accepted with surprising humility. "My mother would say you need to stand taller," Mei Li commented at one point. "Let your lungs fill completely." Uncle Elon tried it, and his voice immediately sounded fuller. "Your mother sounds like a good teacher," he said. Mei Li smiled sadly. "She is. She misses teaching larger groups since we moved, though. She only has a few private students here." After about an hour, Mei Li called them over. "I think it's ready. Listen." She played the new backing track, which now had a gentler beginning and better balance throughout. When Uncle Elon sang with it, the difference was remarkable. His voice blended perfectly with the music, clear and powerful during the chorus, intimate and warm during the verses. When they finished, all three sat in silence for a moment. "That's it," Uncle Elon said finally. "That's exactly what it needed." He looked at Mei Li with new respect. "Thank you." Mei Li ducked her head, pleased, but embarrassed by the praise. "I just adjusted a few things. Your voice did the rest." As the practice continued, Zach watched his uncle and Mei Li work together, amazed at how quickly they had formed a connection through music. For the first time since the talent show challenge, he felt a spark of something new. Not just relief that his uncle wouldn't embarrass himself, but actual excitement about what was to come. The talent show was only a day away now, and against all odds, Zach found himself looking forward to it. The next morning, Zach arrived at school to find a news van parked outside the main entrance. A reporter stood nearby, talking into a microphone while a camera operator filmed. "What's going on?" Zach asked Mason as they walked past. "Dude, haven't you checked social media?" Mason pulled out his phone and showed Zach a local news website. The headline read, "Tech billionaire to perform at local school talent show." Zach's stomach dropped. "This is getting out of control." "I know. It's awesome," Mason enthused, completely missing Zach's discomfort. "My parents are coming, and they never come to school stuff. Everyone wants to see what your uncle's going to do." Inside the school, things were even worse. Principal Donovan stopped Zach in the hallway, her face flushed with excitement. "Zach, there you are. Do you think your uncle would mind doing a short interview with Channel 8 News before the show tomorrow? They're doing a special segment and—" "I'll have to ask him," Zach interrupted, trying to escape. Of course," she nodded vigorously. "And please let him know we've arranged special parking near the stage door of the high school auditorium. We wouldn't want him to be mobbed by fans." As she hurried away, Zach heard Theo's voice behind him. "Your uncle's got everyone fooled, doesn't he?" Zach turned to find Theo leaning against a row of lockers, a smug smile on his face. "What do you mean?" Zach asked. "I mean, he's got the whole school thinking he's going to do something amazing," Theo said. "But my dad's friend at the news station says reliable sources confirm he's just going to sing." He made air quotes around reliable sources, as if a tech nerd could actually sing well enough to impress anyone. "Those reliable sources are wrong," Zach said firmly, surprising himself with his confidence. "My uncle's going to shock everyone tomorrow night." Theo's eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that." He pushed off from the lockers. "My dad invited some of his business friends too. Important people. Hope your uncle doesn't mind an audience full of actual successful adults judging him." As Theo walked away, Mei Li appeared at Zach's side. "Don't let him get to you," she said quietly. "He's just jealous." "Jealous?" Zach looked at her in confusion. "Of what?" "Of you," Mei Li said simply. "You have a famous uncle who pays attention to you. Some people would do anything for that kind of connection." Zach had never thought of it that way before. "I guess. How is the practice going?" Mei Li asked, changing the subject. "Good, I think. Thanks again for your help yesterday." Zach hesitated. Would you want to come over again today? For the final practice?" Mei Li's face lit up. "I'd like that." Later that afternoon, Zach, Uncle Elon, and Mei Lee gathered in the guest room for one last rehearsal. Uncle Elon looked tired but focused as he ran through both songs multiple times. "You should rest your voice," Mei Lee advised after the third run-through. "My mother says too much practice the day before a performance can strain your vocal cords." Uncle Elon nodded, taking a sip of his special tea. "You're right. I think we're as ready as we'll ever be. The whole school is talking about it," Zach said. "There was even a news van outside today." Uncle Elon winced. "I was afraid of that. One of my PR people called this morning. Apparently, someone leaked that I'm participating in a middle school talent show, and now it's becoming a bigger deal than I expected." "Are you nervous?" Mei Lee asked. Uncle Elon thought for a moment. "Yes," he admitted, "but not about the audience size. I've spoken in front of thousands of people before." He touched his pocket, where Zach knew the mysterious photograph was kept. "It's more about sharing something personal." They sat in companionable silence for a moment. Then Uncle Elon's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and frowned. "Problem?" Zach asked. "There's an issue at the factory," Uncle Elon said, typing a response. "Nothing catastrophic, but I need to make some calls." As Uncle Elon stepped into the hallway with his phone, Mei Lee turned to Zach. "He's really going to do it, isn't he? Even with all the pressure and attention?" "Looks like it," Zach said. "I just hope his voice holds up." Almost on cue, they heard Uncle Elon cough in the hallway. When he returned a few minutes later, his voice sounded raspy. "Are you okay?" Zach asked, alarmed. "Just a little throat irritation," Uncle Elon said. But Zach noticed he was taking more sips of his tea than before. "Nothing to worry about." Mei Lee looked concerned. "My mother has a special remedy for singers with sore throats. I could ask her for the recipe." "That would be great," Uncle Elon said. "And Zach, could you run to the store for some honey and lemons? I'm almost out." As Zach grabbed his jacket, he couldn't help worrying. What if Uncle Elon's voice gave out completely? With news vans and business people and the whole school watching, it would be even more humiliating than if he'd never agreed to perform in the first place. On his way to the store, Zach passed the high school auditorium. Workers were unloading sound equipment, and a large banner was being hung that read, "Spring Talent Showcase." The sight made his stomach twist with a fresh wave of anxiety. By the time he returned home with the honey and lemons, Mei Lee had already left, promising to bring her mother's remedy in the morning. Uncle Elon was resting his voice, communicating through notes on his tablet. That night, as Zach tried to fall asleep, he could hear his mother and uncle talking in low voices downstairs. "Are you sure you're up for this?" his mom was asking. "You sound terrible." Uncle Elon's response was too quiet to make out, but whatever he said made his mom laugh. "Well, it's your funeral," she said. "But Zach will be mortified if you croak, like a frog on stage." Zach pulled his pillow over his head. Tomorrow was the big day, and despite his growing excitement earlier, his anxiety was back in full force. Everything. His uncle's reputation, his own social standing, and now apparently even Uncle Elon's health, hung in the balance. The talent show was less than 24 hours away. Zach woke to the sound of his phone buzzing with text messages. Squinting at the screen, he saw a dozen notifications from classmates asking about Uncle Elon's performance. He ignored them all and headed downstairs for breakfast. In the kitchen, his mom was making pancakes while Uncle Elon sat at the table, typing furiously on his laptop. He looked up when Zach entered and held a finger to his lips, then typed a note on his tablet. "Saving my voice. No talking today. Is bodied tree." "Your throat worse?" Zach asked, concerned. Uncle Elon shrugged and typed, "Not better, not worse. Just being careful." Mei Li said she's bringing her mom's special remedy before school, Zach said, sliding into a chair. "She texted me this morning." Uncle Elon gave a thumbs up and returned to his laptop. Zach's mom set a plate of pancakes in front of each of them. "Eat up," she said. "Big day today." They ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Uncle Elon's phone rang. He looked at the screen, frowned, and stepped out of the room to take the call. When he returned a few minutes later, his expression was grim. He typed quickly on his tablet and showed it to Zach and his mom. "Emergency at factory. Need to go now. Might have to miss show." "What?" Zach blurted. "But the talent show is tonight." His mom put a hand on his shoulder. "Elon, how serious is it?" Uncle Elon typed, "Production line down. Millions at stake. Need to oversee. Fix." Zach felt a confusing mix of emotions. Part of him was relieved. No talent show meant no potential embarrassment. But another part, a surprisingly strong part, felt disappointed. After all their practice, after seeing how good his uncle really was, after Mei Li's help with the music, it would all be for nothing. "I understand," Zach said quietly. "It's okay." Uncle Elon studied him for a moment, then typed, "Sorry, Zach. Some things can't be helped." 10 minutes later, Uncle Elon was gone, driven away by a car that had arrived to take him to the airport. Zach stood in the driveway, watching the car disappear. Around the corner, a hollow feeling in his chest. "I'm sorry, honey," his mom said, giving him a quick hug before heading to work. "I know you were starting to look forward to it." At school, Zach faced a barrage of questions about his uncle's performance. He gave the same answer to everyone. He had a business emergency and had to leave town. Most people looked disappointed, but understanding. Theo, however, was triumphant. "I knew he'd back out," he crowed during lunch, too scared to embarrass himself in front of everyone. Zach didn't bother responding. What was the point? After school, he found Mei Li waiting by his locker, holding a small glass bottle filled with amber liquid. "I brought the remedy," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "My mother made it fresh this morning. Where's your uncle?" Zach's shoulders slumped. He had to leave. There was an emergency at one of his factories. Mei Li's face fell. "Oh, so he won't be performing tonight?" "Nope." Zach opened his locker and shoved his books inside with more force than necessary. "Sorry you went to all that trouble for nothing." "It wasn't for nothing," Mei Li said quietly. "I enjoyed helping. It was the first time since moving here that I felt useful." Zach looked at her, really seeing the sadness in her eyes for the first time. "I'm glad you helped too. It was cool working with you." They walked to the bus stop together, talking about the other acts that would be in the talent show. Mei Li mentioned she might still go to watch. "No point now," Zach said as they climbed onto the bus. "The only reason people were excited was to see my uncle." "Maybe," Mei Li said. "But it's still a chance to see what other students can do." When they arrived at Zach's stop, Mei Li surprised him by getting off too. "I thought I'd walk you home," she explained, "since I still have this remedy and all." As they approached Zach's house, his phone rang. It was his uncle's number. "Hello?" Zach answered. "Zach," Uncle Elon's voice sounded raspy but determined. "I'm at the airport. The factory issue is being handled by my team. I'm coming back." "You are?" Zach couldn't hide his surprise. "But what about the emergency?" "Some things are important enough to delegate," Uncle Elon said. "My flight lands in 2 hours. Will you have someone pick me up?" "Yes." Zach felt a surge of excitement. "Mom can do it, or I'll get a ride share." "Good. And one more thing. Is Mei Li with you? I could use that remedy." Zach looked at Mei Li, who was watching him curiously. Yeah, she's right here. Perfect. See you soon. After hanging up, Zach turned to Mei Li, grinning widely. He's coming. Back! The show is on! Mei Li's eyes widened. Really? He's flying back just for the talent show? Yes. Zach grabbed her hand without thinking. Come on, we need to get everything ready. As they ran up the driveway, Zach realized something important had changed. A week ago, he had dreaded the talent show with every fiber of his being. Now, he couldn't wait. And it wasn't just because he knew his uncle would be amazing. It was because, somehow, in preparing for this performance, he had found something unexpected, a new friend in Mei Li and a new understanding of his famous uncle. No matter what happened on stage tonight, that was worth something. Little did he know just how much more was at stake than a middle school talent show. The high school auditorium buzzed with excitement. Every seat was filled, and people stood along the walls at the back. News cameras were set up in several locations, and a line of cars still snaked through the parking lot as latecomers rushed to find spots. Backstage, Zach paced nervously in the narrow hallway. Uncle Elon had texted that he was 5 minutes away, but the show was scheduled to start in 10. Principal Donovan kept popping her head around the corner, asking if the special guest had arrived yet. He'll be here, Zach assured her for the fifth time. His flight just landed a little late. Well, we can't hold the show for too long, Principal Donovan fretted. There are 12 other acts waiting, and the news crews have time constraints. Mei Li, who had been given a special backstage pass as Uncle Elon's assistant, touched Zach's arm. Look, she whispered, pointing toward the stage door. Uncle Elon slipped through the entrance, wearing a simple black shirt and pants. He looked tired from the flight, but smiled when he saw them. Made it, he said, his voice still raspy, despite apparently using the remedy Mei Li had provided. Sorry for the drama. You're here. That's what matters, Zach said, relief washing over him. He turned to Principal Donovan. See? Told you. The principal hurried over, practically bouncing with excitement. Mr. Musk, we're so honored. You're our closing act, of course. The grand finale. Can I get you anything? Water? A private room to prepare? Just some space to warm up would be fine, Uncle Elon replied politely. Of course, she gestured to a small dressing room. This is all yours. The show starts in 5 minutes. You'll be on in about an hour. As she bustled away, Uncle Elon, Zach, and Mei Li slipped into the dressing room and closed the door. How's your voice? Mei Li asked. Immediately, Uncle Elon took a sip from a thermos he was carrying, presumably filled with more of Mei Li's remedy. It's holding up. Not perfect, but it'll do. He set the thermos down and rubbed his hands together. So, big crowd out there. The biggest they've ever had for a talent show, Zach confirmed. Everyone's here to see you. Something flickered across Uncle Elon's face. Not exactly fear, but a kind of vulnerability Zach had never seen in him before. Are you nervous? Zach asked, surprised. Uncle Elon let out a short laugh. Of course I'm nervous. Aren't you nervous before tests? Or baseball games? Yeah, but you're... Zach gestured vaguely. You build rockets and run huge companies and talk to world leaders. And none of that makes me immune to stage fright, Uncle Elon admitted. He sank into a chair in front of a small mirror. Especially for something like this. But you've done presentations in front of thousands of people, Zach protested. I've seen videos. Uncle Elon nodded. That's different. That's talking about work I'm confident in, ideas I believe in. This. He pulled the worn photograph from his pocket and looked at it. This is personal. Mei Li approached cautiously. "May I ask what that picture is? You look at it before every practice." "Uncle?" Elon hesitated, then handed it to her. Zach moved closer to see it too. The photograph showed a much younger Uncle Elon, maybe 12 or 13, standing next to an elderly black man with a kind face and bright eyes. They were on what looked like a stage, and both were smiling widely. "That's Saifo," Uncle Elon said softly. "He was my choir director in South Africa, one of the kindest men I've ever known. He believed in my voice when no one else did, including me." "You were in a choir?" Zach asked, pieces suddenly falling into place. "That's where you learned to sing?" Uncle Elon nodded. "From ages 8 to 12. When we moved, I had to leave. The choir. And then life happened. Computers, college, companies." "But you kept singing?" Mei Li asked. "Only for myself, in the shower, in the car." A small smile played on his lips. "Sometimes when I'm alone in my factories late at night." "Why didn't you ever tell anyone?" Zach asked. "You're really good." Uncle Elon shrugged. "The world put me in a box labeled tech guy." After a while, it seemed easier to stay there. He took the photo back, looking at it thoughtfully. Saifo used to say everyone has music in them, but not everyone has the courage to let others hear it. From outside the dressing room, they could hear the show beginning. The principal's voice welcomed everyone, followed by enthusiastic applause. "Sounds like a full house," Uncle Elon remarked, his voice betraying a slight tremor. "You'll be amazing," Mei Li said with firm confidence. "Just remember what we practiced." For the next hour, they listened as the other performers took their turns on stage. There were piano solos, dance routines, a comedy skit, and even a surprisingly good magic act. The crowd seemed enthusiastic but restless, clearly waiting for the main event. "5 minutes, Mr. Musk," a stagehand called through the door. Uncle Elon stood and straightened his shirt. He closed his eyes for a moment, taking slow, deep breaths. "Uncle Elon," Zach said hesitantly, "you don't have to do this if you don't want to. No one would blame you if you changed your mind." His uncle opened his eyes and looked at Zach with surprise. "Would you be disappointed if I backed out?" The question caught Zach off guard. A week ago, he would have been thrilled if his uncle had canceled. Now, he realized with some surprise, he actually wanted to see him perform. "Yeah," Zach admitted, "I would, but it's your choice." Uncle Elon smiled. A real smile, not the slight one he used for cameras. "Then I'm doing it. For Saifo, for myself, and for you." The stagehand knocked again. 2 minutes! "I'll go find my seat," Mei Li said, giving Uncle Elon's arm a quick, encouraging squeeze. "Remember, tall posture, deep breaths, and focus on the back wall if the crowd makes you nervous." As she slipped out the door, Uncle Elon turned to Zach. "Your friend is pretty amazing." "Yeah," Zach agreed. "She is. Mr. Musk, you're up." The stagehand appeared in the doorway, looking nervous but excited. Uncle Elon took one last deep breath and tucked the photograph back into his pocket. "Here goes nothing." As they walked toward the stage, Zach could see his mother in the front row, sitting next to an empty seat saved for him. Theo and his family were a few rows back, the boy's face a mixture of curiosity and lingering smugness. News cameras pointed toward the stage, red lights blinking. Principal Donovan stepped up to the microphone. "And now, for our special guest performer, please welcome Elon Musk." The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Uncle Elon squared his shoulders, gave Zach a quick wink, and walked out onto the stage. Alone in the spotlight, he suddenly looked smaller, more human than the larger-than-life figure Zach was used to seeing in news reports. For a split second, Zach felt a flash of panic. What if everything went wrong? What if Uncle Elon's voice gave out completely? But as the applause died down and a hush fell over the audience, Zach saw his uncle's posture change. He stood taller, just as Mei Li had instructed, and looked out over the crowd with quiet confidence. The moment of truth had arrived. The auditorium fell completely silent as Uncle Elon stood center stage. The spotlight created a perfect circle of light around him, making him seem isolated from everything else. For several seconds, he didn't move or speak, and Zach's heart hammered in his chest. From his seat in the front row between his mom and Mei Li, Zach could see his uncle's face clearly. There was an unusual stillness to him, so different from his energetic presentations about rockets and electric cars. Uncle Elon's eyes briefly scanned the crowd, then he seemed to look past everyone, focusing on some distant point as Mei Li had suggested. The silence stretched on, becoming uncomfortable. People began to shift in their seats. A few coughs echoed through the room. Near the back, someone whispered loud enough to be heard. "Is he frozen?" Zach noticed Theo smirking a few rows back, nudging his father and pointing. The news cameras remained fixed on Uncle Elon, their red lights glowing steadily. Principal Donovan stood off to the side of the stage, her smile becoming strained as the silence continued. Just when Zach thought he might need to do something, run up on stage, create a distraction, anything to save his uncle from this awkward moment. Uncle Elon closed his eyes. He took a deep breath, lifted his chin slightly, and began to sing. The first notes were soft, almost tentative, and in a language few in the audience understood. The ancient Xhosa folk song started as little more than a whisper. Uncle Elon's voice carrying a slight raspiness from his sore throat. The melody was haunting and unfamiliar to Western ears, with rhythms that seemed to dance between notes in unexpected ways. Some of the younger kids in the audience giggled nervously at the strange sounds. Zach saw Theo's smirk widen, and he felt a stab of worry. Had this been a mistake after all? But then something began to change. Uncle Elon's voice grew stronger, more confident with each phrase. The raspiness that had worried Zach earlier somehow added texture to the performance, making it sound raw and authentic. The clicking sounds of the Xhosa language, which had initially seemed odd, now created a percussive rhythm that was mesmerizing. The giggles and whispers faded. People leaned forward in their seats. Even the news camera operators, who had been checking their watches moments before, were now fully focused on capturing every second. Uncle Elon's eyes remained closed as the song built in intensity. His hands, which had hung at his sides, now moved slightly with the music, emphasizing certain phrases. The language might have been foreign, but the emotion behind it was universal. A melody that spoke of longing, of homeland, of memories carried across oceans and years. Zach glanced at Mei Li beside him. She sat perfectly still, her eyes shining, with unshed tears. When she noticed him looking, she whispered, "It's beautiful." As the first song reached its final notes, Uncle Elon's voice softened again, the melody dissolving into a whisper that seemed to hang in the air even after he stopped singing. For a heartbeat, the auditorium remained absolutely silent. Uncle Elon opened his eyes, looking almost surprised to find himself on stage in front of hundreds of people. Then, hesitantly at first, the applause began. It started in the back rows and rolled forward like a wave, growing louder as it spread. People weren't standing yet. They seemed too stunned for that, but the applause was genuine, appreciative. Zach saw his uncle take another deep breath. He seemed to stand taller now, more at ease. He nodded slightly to someone off stage, and soft piano music began to play through the speakers, the backing track that Mei Li had fixed for him. "This second song," Uncle Elon said, his speaking voice, quiet but clear enough to be heard throughout the auditorium, "is something I wrote many years ago, when I was first dreaming of the stars." The piano intro continued, simple and elegant. Uncle Elon closed his eyes again, and this time when he began to sing, his voice was immediately stronger, more confident. The English lyrics flowed like water. Beyond the clouds where dreamers soar, past all the limits we've known before, there lies a path that few can see, a journey meant for you and me. The song told a story of reaching beyond boundaries, of pursuing impossible dreams, of falling and rising again. It wasn't explicitly about space or technology. It could have been about any passion, any pursuit that required courage and persistence. But coming from Uncle Elon, with his well-known ambitions, it carried extra meaning. As he reached the chorus, his voice rose powerfully. "So lift your eyes up to the stars, and know that nothing is too far. The road is long, the climb is steep, but promises are ours to keep." Zach was transfixed. This wasn't just good singing. This was something else entirely. His uncle wasn't performing. He was sharing something deeply personal, something that had clearly lived in his heart for years. The words might have been written by a younger Elon, but they still reflected the man he had become. Around the auditorium, Zach noticed people wiping away tears. Even some of the teachers and parents who had seemed skeptical earlier were now watching with genuine emotion. Mei Li reached over and squeezed Zach's hand, her eyes never leaving the stage. Most surprising of all was Theo. The smirk had vanished from his face, replaced by an expression of bewilderment and, could it be, respect. His father beside him looked equally stunned, his phone forgotten in his hand as he stared at the stage. As the song approached its final verse, Uncle Elon's voice grew softer again, more intimate, as if he were sharing a secret. "The Puchusi world may doubt, the path may bend, but courage sees us to the end. So take my hand and we will fly, beyond the earth, beyond the sky." The piano faded, and Uncle Elon sang the final line a cappella, his voice clear and pure despite the earlier raspiness. "For dreams like stars are meant to guide us home." The last note hung in the air for what seemed like an eternity. Uncle Elon stood still, eyes closed, caught in the moment between performance and reality. Then the spell broke. The audience erupted. People leaped to their feet, applauding wildly, some cheering, others simply staring in amazement. The standing ovation was immediate and unanimous. Uncle Elon opened his eyes, looking momentarily startled by the reaction. A small, genuine smile spread across his face. Not the practiced smile he used for business presentations, but something more vulnerable and real. He gave a slight bow, then straightened up and looked directly at Zach for the first time since he'd begun singing. Even from the audience, Zach could see the question in his uncle's eyes. Was it okay? Zach was on his feet, clapping so hard his hands hurt, nodding vigorously, unable to contain his pride and amazement. Their eyes locked across the distance, and in that moment, Zach felt he truly saw his uncle. Not the famous billionaire, not the tech genius, but simply a person who had shared something precious and was hoping it had been received with kindness. The applause continued, showing no signs of stopping. Principal Donovan rushed onto the stage, her face flushed with excitement. She tried to speak into the microphone, but her words were lost in the continuing ovation. Uncle Elon shook her hand, gave one more small bow to the audience, and then walked off stage with the same quiet dignity with which he had arrived. "Come on," Zach said to Mei Li, grabbing her hand. "Let's go backstage." They pushed their way through the crowd, dodging reporters, who were already broadcasting live reactions. Behind them, Zach could hear snippets of conversation. Who knew he could sing like that? The man builds rockets and writes songs? That second song should be recorded professionally. Backstage was chaos. Teachers, staff, and the other student. Performers crowded around the wings, all trying to catch a glimpse of Uncle Elon, who had disappeared into the dressing room. A security guard had positioned himself at the door, keeping everyone out. "That's his nephew," someone said, pointing at Zach. The guard stepped aside, allowing Zach and Mei Li to slip through. Inside, they found Uncle Elon sitting quietly, looking at the old photograph again. He glanced up when they entered, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. "Well?" he asked simply. "You were amazing!" Zach burst out, unable to contain himself any longer. "Uncle Elon, that was the best thing I've ever heard. Everyone loved it. They're still clapping out there." Mei Li, more composed but equally enthusiastic, added, "Your technique was perfect. The way you controlled your breathing despite your sore throat. My mother would be so impressed." Uncle Elon smiled, tucking the photograph back into his pocket. "Saifo would have been proud," he said softly. "He always said music was meant to be shared." A knock at the door interrupted them. Principal Donovan poked her head in, beaming. "Mr. Musk, the audience is asking for an encore, and there are reporters waiting to interview you." Uncle Elon looked at Zach, raising an eyebrow in question. "It's up to you," Zach said, understanding the unspoken question. "But if you're asking me, I think you should go back out there." For a moment, Uncle Elon seemed to consider his options. Then he stood up, straightened his shirt, and headed for the door. "Maybe one more song," he said with a smile. "For old time's sake." As he left the room, Mei Li turned to Zach, her eyes bright with excitement. "Your uncle is incredible. Not just the singing, but the courage to share something so personal." Zach nodded, a strange new feeling swelling in his chest. All his life, he had thought of his uncle as someone separate from him, a famous figure who happened to be related to him, someone whose accomplishments were untouchable and whose life was nothing like his own. But tonight, something had changed. He had seen a different side of Uncle Elon, a more human side, and somehow it made him feel more connected to him than ever before. "Come on," he said to Mei Li. "Let's go watch the encore." As they headed back toward the auditorium, Zach spotted Theo standing awkwardly by the water fountain. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Zach expected another smug comment or challenge. Instead, Theo gave a small nod of acknowledgement. "Your uncle," Theo said, his voice lacking its usual edge, "is pretty cool after all." It wasn't quite an apology, but Zach would take it. He nodded back and continued toward the auditorium, where the crowd was still on its feet, waiting for more. The moment of truth had passed, and it had exceeded everyone's expectations, especially Zach's. The next morning, Zach woke to the sound of his phone buzzing nonstop. Groggily, he reached for it and found dozens of notifications, texts from classmates, social media alerts, and news alerts. He sat up, suddenly wide awake, and opened the first link. There on his screen was a video clip titled "Tech Billionaire Stuns Audience with incredible vocal performance. The thumbnail showed Uncle Elon on stage, captured mid-song. The view counter already showed over 2 million views. More scrolling revealed headlines like "The Hidden Talent of Elon Musk" and "From Rockets to Rock Star. Musk Reveals Musical Gift." One local news site had the headline, "Middle School Talent Show Becomes International Sensation Overnight." "Zach, breakfast," his mom called from downstairs. In the kitchen, Zach found his mother and Uncle Elon sitting at the table. His uncle looked surprisingly relaxed, sipping coffee and reading something on his tablet. "Morning, superstar," his mom said with a grin. "Have you seen the news?" "Some of it," Zach replied, sliding into a chair. "Looks like Uncle Elon's famous for a whole new reason now," Uncle Elon chuckled. "Fame comes and goes. The internet has a short attention span." "But everyone loved it," Zach protested. "All the comments say you should record an album or something." "Maybe someday," Uncle Elon said with a mysterious smile. "For now, I have rockets to build and cars to improve." Zach's phone buzzed again, a text from Mason. "Dude, your uncle is trending worldwide." When did he learn to sing like that? "So what happens now?" Zach asked, looking up from his phone. Uncle Elon set down his tablet. "Now I fly back to Texas this afternoon to check on that factory issue. Life goes on." "But that's it?" Zach couldn't hide his disappointment. "You're just going to go back to normal life after last night?" His uncle looked at him thoughtfully. "What did you expect would happen?" Zach shrugged. "I don't know. Something different." "Different has already happened," Uncle Elon said quietly. "Just not in the way you might think." Before Zach could ask what he meant, the doorbell rang. His mom went to answer it, returning a moment later with Mei Li and an elegant woman who could only be her mother. "Look who's here," his mom announced. Uncle Elon stood up, extending his hand to Mei Li's mother. "You must be Mrs. Chen. Your daughter has been a tremendous help." Mrs. Chen shook his hand, her expression composed, but her eyes bright with interest. "My daughter couldn't stop talking about your performance last night. I'm sorry I missed it." "Mom's a vocal coach," Mei Li explained to Zach. "She's worked with professional singers in Seattle." "I brought you something for your throat, Mrs. Chen said, offering Uncle Elon a small jar. "A special tea blend, more effective than what I sent yesterday." "Thank you," Uncle Elon said, accepting the gift. "Your daughter has quite an ear for music. The adjustments she made to my backing track were perfect." Mrs. Chen smiled proudly at Mei Li. She has always had a gift. Her smile faded slightly. Since the divorce, it's been harder for her to pursue her music. New city, new school. "Mom," Mei Li whispered, looking embarrassed. Uncle Elon seemed to consider something for a moment. "Mrs. Chen, do you have any interest in teaching music to employees' children? My new factory here is setting up a family center, and we've been looking for quality instructors." Mrs. Chen's eyes widened. Yes, I would be very interested." "Excellent. My assistant will contact you next week to discuss details." Uncle Elon turned to Mei Li. "And perhaps you would consider helping with the youth choir we're planning to establish?" Mei Li's face lit up. "Really? Yes, I'd love to." Zach watched this exchange with amazement. In just a few sentences, his uncle had potentially changed the lives of Mei Li and her mother. He did it so casually, as if arranging jobs and opportunities was as simple as ordering coffee. After Mei Li and her mother left with promises to stay in touch, Zach helped his uncle pack his things for the flight back to Texas. That was really nice "What you did for Mei Li and her mom," Zach said as he handed Uncle Elon his laptop charger. "It's not charity," Uncle Elon replied. "They have real talent. The company will benefit from their skills." "Still, it means a lot to them." Zach hesitated, then asked the question that had been bothering him since breakfast. "What did you mean earlier about different already happening?" Uncle Elon paused in his packing and sat on the edge of the bed. He pulled out the now familiar photograph of himself with Sifo and looked at it thoughtfully. "When I was about your age," he began, "music was my escape. It was the one place where I didn't have to think about being different, being bullied, being the odd kid out. Sifo saw that in me and nurtured it. He told me once that music would help me find my true voice, not just for singing, but for life." He turned the photograph over. On the back, Zach could see faded handwriting. "His last words to me before we moved away," Uncle Elon continued, "were, 'Someday, when you least expect it, your voice will be needed again to bridge worlds and change hearts.'" I never quite understood what he meant until last night. "Because you sang in 2 languages?" Zach guessed. Uncle Elon smiled. "That's part of it. But there was something more happening in that auditorium. Did you notice how quiet everyone got? How they leaned forward? For a few minutes, they weren't watching Elon Musk, billionaire. They were just listening to a human being sharing something real." He tucked the photograph carefully back into his wallet. In a world full of artificial connections and carefully curated images, genuine moments have become rare. Last night was genuine. That's the different I was talking about. Zach thought about this. "So, it's not about becoming a singer or anything?" "No. It's about remembering that beneath all the labels and expectations, we're just people with dreams and fears and hidden talents." Uncle Elon zipped up his bag. "That applies to you too, you know." "Me?" Zach looked up in surprise. "Yes, you. A week ago, you were terrified of being associated with me at school. Now look at you. Backstage manager, confidant, connector." Uncle Elon smiled. "You brought Mei Li into the picture, and that made all the difference." Zach hadn't thought about it that way before. He had been so focused on his uncle's performance that he hadn't considered his own role in making it happen. "I guess I did help a little," he admitted. "More than a little." Uncle Elon checked his watch. "I need to head to the airport soon. Walk me out?" Outside, as they waited for the car service to arrive, Uncle Elon gazed thoughtfully at the quiet, suburban street, you know, he said. "Theo's challenge turned out to be a gift in disguise." "How so?" Zach asked. "It forced me to reclaim a part of myself I'd forgotten," Uncle Elon replied, "and it showed me a side of my nephew I hadn't fully appreciated before." The car pulled up, and Uncle Elon gave Zach a quick hug, something he rarely did. "Keep an eye on Mei Li," he said quietly. "She's going to need a good friend at that school." "I will," Zach promised. As the car drove away, Zach's phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Theo. "Tell your uncle thanks for the autograph. My dad's going to frame it." Zach smiled to himself. Maybe Uncle Elon wasn't the only one who had bridged worlds last night. Back inside, Zach found his mom watching one of the news clips about the talent show. "Your uncle certainly knows how to make an impression," she remarked as he flopped onto the couch beside her. "Yeah," Zach agreed. On screen, Uncle Elon was taking his final bow, the audience on their feet applauding wildly. The camera panned to show Zach and Mei Li in the front row, both beaming with pride. "You know what's funny?" Zach said. "A week ago, I would have died of embarrassment if Uncle Elon had shown up at my school. Now I can't wait for him to visit again." His mom smiled, knowingly. "People can surprise you when you give them the chance, even famous uncles." "Even famous uncles," Zach agreed, thinking of the photograph in Uncle Elon's wallet and the promise from long ago that had finally been fulfilled. What he didn't know, yet was that the biggest surprise, was still to come. Monday morning arrived with a strange new reality for Zach. As he walked through the school hallways, people who had never spoken to him before now smiled and waved. A group of 8th grade girls giggled when he passed. Even teachers gave him knowing nods. "It's weird," Zach told Mei Li as they sat together at lunch. "It's like I'm famous by association." "That's how it works," Mei Li said, taking a bite of her sandwich. "My mother used to teach famous singers in Seattle. When people found out, they treated me differently too." "Did you like it?" Zach asked. Mei Li considered this. "Not really. They weren't interested in me, just in who my mother knew." Zach nodded. That was exactly how he felt. Everyone wanted to talk about Uncle Elon, not about him. As if on cue, Mason slid onto the bench across from them, his eyes wide with excitement. "Zach, have you checked your email today?" "No. Why?" "Principal Donovan sent a school-wide announcement. Your uncle's performance raised so much money from ticket sales and donations that they're creating a new music scholarship. They're calling it the Musk Musical Arts Grant." "Really?" Zach looked at Mei Li, who seemed equally surprised. "It gets better," Mason continued. "The announcement says the first recipient has already been chosen, someone who demonstrated exceptional musical talent in helping prepare for the talent show." He pointed at Mei Li. "That's you, isn't it?" Mei Li's face flushed. "What? No, that can't be right." But after school, Principal Donovan confirmed it. She called Mei Li and Zach to her office, where Mrs. Chen was already waiting, tears in her eyes. "The scholarship will cover private music lessons, summer music camp, and a college fund earmarked for musical education," Principal Donovan explained. "Mr. Musk was quite specific about the terms." "But I didn't do anything special," Mei Li protested. "According to Mr. Musk, you did," the principal replied, handing her an official-looking letter. "He was quite impressed by your musical knowledge and your willingness to help." As they left the principal's office, Mei Li was quiet, staring at the letter in her hands. "Are you okay?" Zach asked. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "This changes everything. With lessons and music camp, I could actually—" She trailed off, seemingly afraid to voice her dreams. "Could actually what?" Zach prompted. "Become a real musician someday," she finished. "Not just a hobby, but a career." Mrs. Chen put an arm around her daughter's shoulders. "Your father always said music was a waste of time. But now—" She smiled at Zach. "Please thank your uncle for us." "I will," Zach promised. That evening, as Zach did his homework, his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Hello? Zach, it's Uncle Elon. Uncle Elon, I was going to call you." Mei Li got the scholarship, and she and her mom are so happy, and that's actually why I'm calling, Uncle Elon interrupted. "There's something else I didn't tell you before I left." "What's that?" Zach asked. "The performance at the talent show?" It gave me an idea. A big one. Uncle Elon explained that he had spent the flight back to Texas thinking about music, about Sipho's words, and about the connection he had felt with the audience. "I've decided to start a new foundation," he said. "The Sipho Nkosi Music Initiative. It will fund music education in underserved communities, starting in South Africa and expanding globally." "Wow," Zach breathed. "That's amazing." "There's more," Uncle Elon continued. I'm organizing a benefit concert to launch the foundation. Professional musicians, corporate sponsors, the works. And, he paused, I want you and Mei Li to help. Organize it. Us? Zach nearly dropped his phone. But we're just kids. Kids with good instincts about music and people, Uncle Elon replied. Besides, this is for students, so it should be guided by students. I'll have professionals handling the details, but I want your input on what would appeal to young people. Hertz tinty toints. Zach's mind raced with the possibilities. When is this happening? 8 weeks from now. I've already spoken with your mother, and she's agreed to let you miss some school if necessary. Mei Li's mother is on board too. After hanging up, Zach sat on his bed, stunned by this turn of events. From dreading his uncle's talent show appearance to helping organize an international benefit concert, how had this happened so quickly? The next few days were a whirlwind. News of the Saifo and Kosi music initiative spread throughout the school and town. Journalists called for interviews with the nephew who inspired a billionaire's musical comeback. Even Theo seemed impressed, asking Zach if there might be volunteer opportunities at the benefit concert. But the biggest surprise came on Thursday afternoon as Zach and Mei Li walked home from school. I have something to tell you, Mei Li said, looking nervous. My mother and I have been invited to visit South Africa next month to meet with music schools there about the initiative. That's fantastic, Zach exclaimed. Yes, but Mei Li bit her lip. Your uncle asked if you would come too. He said something about wanting you to meet someone important from his past. Zach stopped walking. Someone from his past? In South Africa? He didn't say who. Just that it was important, and that we would understand everything when we got there. That night, Zach could hardly sleep. His mind filled with questions. Who did Uncle Elon want him to meet? What else was his famous uncle planning? And how had a simple talent show turned into something that might change lives around the world? As he finally drifted off to sleep, Zach thought about the photograph of young Elon and Saifo. The words on the back, "Your voice will be needed again to bridge worlds and change hearts," seemed to have come true in ways no one could have predicted. 1 week later, Zach sat in his living room with his mom, Uncle Elon, who had flown in for the weekend, Mei Li, and Mrs. Chen. They were reviewing plans for the benefit concert when the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," Uncle Elon said, rising from his chair. He opened the door to reveal an elderly man with kind eyes and a bright smile. A face Zach recognized immediately from the photograph. "Everyone," Uncle Elon said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'd like you to meet Saifo and Kosi." The old man stepped into the room, his eyes twinkling as they settled on Zach. "So this is the nephew who helped Elon find his voice again," he said in a melodious accent. "It seems I have you to thank for fulfilling a prophecy 50 years in the making." As the elderly man extended his hand, Zach realized that the talent show had been just the beginning. The real performance, the one that mattered most, was still unfolding. Zach shook Saifo's hand, amazed at how firm the elderly man's grip was despite his age. Up close, Saifo's face was deeply lined, each wrinkle seemingly telling a story of its own. His eyes, however, were bright and alert, missing nothing. "It's an honor to meet you, sir," Zach said, suddenly feeling shy. "I've seen your picture," Saifo smiled. "Ah, the famous photograph. Elon carries it everywhere, I'm told." He glanced at Uncle Elon, who looked uncharacteristically emotional. "Though I was much younger then, as was your uncle." Everyone gathered in the living room as Uncle Elon explained how he had tracked down his old choir director, Sifo had retired from teaching years ago, but had continued working with community choirs in Cape Town. When Uncle Elon contacted him about the new music initiative, Sifo had immediately agreed to help, and to visit America for the first time. "I always knew Elon would do important things," Sifo told them, accepting a cup of tea from Zach's mom. Even as a boy, his mind was always working, always questioning. But his heart, he tapped his chest. His heart spoke most clearly through music. "I had no idea my uncle could sing until last week," Zach admitted. Sifo laughed, a rich, melodious sound. "Many talents can lie dormant, waiting for the right moment to bloom. Sometimes they need a little push." He looked pointedly at Zach. "Like a dare from a school bully, perhaps?" Zach's eyes widened. "You know about that?" "Elon has told me everything," Sifo confirmed. "How you were embarrassed at first, then worried, then finally proud." His expression grew serious. "That journey, from fear to pride, is one many musicians take. It is why music has power. It transforms not just the listener, but the performer, too." Over dinner, Sifo shared stories about young Elon in the choir, how he was initially shy and reluctant to sing solos, how he would practice alone after everyone else had left, how he had a particular gift for learning songs in Xhosa, despite it not being his native language. The other boys sometimes teased him, Sifo recalled. A white boy singing songs from black South African traditions. It was unusual then. But Elon never stopped. He had something to prove, perhaps to himself most of all. Listening to these stories, Zach saw his uncle in a completely new light, not as the tech billionaire everyone knew, but as a once awkward boy finding his place in the world. Not so different from Zach himself. After dinner, Mei Li shyly asked if Sifo would sing something for them. The old man's eyes twinkled. "Only if Elon will join me," he said. Uncle Elon seemed surprised but agreed. The two moved to the living room, and without any accompaniment, began to sing a song in Xhosa, the same one Uncle Elon had performed at the talent show. Their voices blended perfectly, Sifo's deeper bass complementing Uncle Elon's tenor. The song seemed to fill the house with warmth and memory. When they finished, Mei Li asked what the lyrics meant. "It is a song about returning home," Sifo explained. "About finding your way back to what matters most, even after traveling far away." He looked meaningfully at Uncle Elon. "Some journeys take us across oceans and to the stars. Others take us back to ourselves." Later that evening, as everyone was preparing for bed, Zach found his uncle and Sifo sitting on the back porch, talking quietly under the stars. "May I join you?" Zach asked. "Of course," Uncle Elon said, making room on the porch swing. For a while, they sat in comfortable silence, looking up at the night sky. Then Sifo spoke. "Your uncle tells me you have been invited to South Africa." "Yes, sir," Zach replied, "for the music initiative." Sifo nodded. "It is good to see where your roots are, even if they are not your own roots. It helps to understand the stories that made you." "Is that why you came all this way?" Zach asked. "To see where Uncle Elon's life led him?" The old man smiled. "Partly. And partly to see if my words to him long ago came true. Your voice will be needed again to bridge worlds and change hearts. It seems they have, in ways I never imagined. But he's not becoming a professional singer or anything," Zach pointed out. "Ah, but music is doing what it always does, bringing people together." Sifo gestured to the house behind them. "Look at who is here now. Your family. The Chinese music teacher and her daughter. Soon, students from South Africa and around the world. All because of a song. Uncle Elon, who had been quiet, finally spoke. All because of a teacher who saw something in a difficult child that others missed. Saifo waved away the compliment. I simply opened a door. You walked through it, then closed it for many years. Now, thanks to your nephew, it is open again. The next morning, plans were made. Saifo would stay in America for 2 weeks, helping to organize the music initiative. Then everyone, Zach, his mom, Uncle Elon, Mei Li, and Mrs. Chen, would travel to South Africa to visit the schools that would benefit from the program. As they discussed details, Zach noticed something remarkable. His uncle, usually impatient and quick to make decisions, was listening intently to everyone's ideas, especially Saifo's and Mei Li's. It was as if the music had changed something fundamental in him, or perhaps had simply revealed a side of him that had been there all along, waiting for the right moment to emerge. When Theo texted later that day, asking if there was news about the initiative, Zach didn't hesitate. Come over, he replied. There's someone you should meet. The talent show trophy sat on a shelf, already gathering dust, but its impact continued to ripple outward, touching lives in ways no one could have foreseen, proving that sometimes the most important performances happen long after the applause has faded. 6 weeks later, Zach stood on a grassy hillside in Thuanda, South Africa, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. The air smelled different here, earthy and sweet, with hints of unfamiliar flowers. Behind him, voices rose in song. A group of children from the local music school were rehearsing with Mei Li and Mrs. Chen for tomorrow's ceremony to officially launch the Saifo Nkosi Music Initiative. Their clear, young voices carried across the hillside, singing both in English and Xhosa. Uncle Elon approached, his skin tanned from 2 weeks under the African sun. Beautiful, isn't it? He said, nodding toward the horizon. It's amazing, Zach agreed. I can see why you remember it so clearly. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, listening to the children sing. I wanted to show you something, Uncle Elon said finally, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out not the familiar photograph Zach expected, but an old, worn journal. This belonged to Saifo. He gave it to me yesterday. Zach accepted the journal carefully. The leather cover was cracked with age, the pages yellowed and fragile. Uncle Elon opened it to a marked page, where neat handwriting filled the lines. This is an entry from 50 years ago, Uncle Elon explained. The day after my last choir performance before we moved away. Zach read slowly, tracing the words with his finger. Today I said goodbye to young Elon. Such a remarkable boy. Brilliant yet vulnerable. Confident yet searching. His voice carries something rare. Not just talent, but feeling. He does not simply sing notes. He tells stories with his heart. I told him that someday his voice would be needed again to bridge worlds and change hearts. He did not understand, but he will. Music plants seeds that grow in unexpected seasons. I believe this boy will do great things, whether with his voice, his mind, or his hands. He will build bridges where others see only chasms. My hope is that he never forgets the song inside him, even as the world pulls him toward different melodies. Zach looked up at his uncle, who was gazing out at the sunset. He knew, Zach said softly. Even then, he knew you'd be someone important. Uncle Elon nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. Not in the way most people think of importance, though. Not fame or money or power. Saifo measures importance by how many hearts you touch, how many lives you improve. He took the journal back, handling it with reverence. By his measure, he's far more important than I could ever be. Is that why you started the music initiative? Zach asked. To be important in his way? Partly, Uncle Elon admitted, and partly because seeing you and Mei Li these past weeks, how quickly you've connected with these children, how music bridges the language barriers, it reminds me of what I experienced in Saifo's choir. He gazed at the young singers. Technology connects people across distances, but music connects people across differences. We need both. As they walked back toward the group, Saifo emerged from the small building that housed the music school. Despite his age, he had been tireless. During their visit, introducing them to local musicians, arranging performances, telling stories about the region's rich musical heritage. "Ah, there you are," he called. "The children want to show you something, Zach, a song they've written specially for tomorrow." The children gathered around, suddenly shy but excited. With Mei Li's encouragement, they began to sing a simple but beautiful melody. The lyrics, in a mixture of English and Xhosa, told of dreams and stars, of voices carrying across oceans, of old songs finding new singers. As Zach listened, he suddenly understood something important. The photo Uncle Elon had carried all these years wasn't just a memento of his childhood. It was a reminder of a promise. Not just Saifo's promise that Elon's voice would be needed again, but a deeper promise about the power of sharing your gifts with the world, whatever they might be. Later that evening, as everyone gathered for dinner at the small hotel where they were staying, Uncle Elon made an announcement. "I've been thinking about what comes next," he said. "The initiative is launched. Schools in 3 countries are already participating. But there's something else I want to do." He looked at Zach, then at Mei Li. "You two have shown remarkable talent, not just in music, but in connecting with people. So I'm establishing a youth ambassador program for the initiative. If you're interested, you'd travel during school breaks to different participating schools, helping students share their music with each other." Mei Li gasped. "Really? We could do that?" "With your parents' permission, of course," Uncle Elon added, nodding to Mrs. Chen and Zach's mom. "But I'm not musical like Mei Li," Zach protested. Saifo, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "Music takes many forms, young man. Some sing with their voices. Others, like you, sing with their hearts. You build bridges between people. That is its own kind of music." That night, as Zach lay in bed thinking about everything that had happened since that fateful career day, he realized what Saifo meant. The talent show had never really been about Uncle Elon's singing. It had been about courage, connection, and rediscovering parts of yourself that had been set aside. Uncle Elon had found his voice again. Mei Li had found her purpose. And Zach? He had found a new way of seeing himself and his place in the world. Not just as Elon Musk's nephew, but as someone with his own unique role to play. The real revelation wasn't about hidden talents or viral videos or international initiatives. It was about the simple truth that sometimes the most important note in any song is the one that calls others to join in. Thanks for watching. Where are you listening from today? Drop your location in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Every subscription helps us spread more stories of kindness and inspiration just like this one. Before you go, check out another incredible story that's captivated millions. Daughter went missing at school 2 years later. Mom zooms in on Google Maps. It's appearing on your screen right now. Click to discover this unbelievable true story. Until next time, keep believing in the unexpected talents within us all.